Imagine being shot in the head 3 times. Imagine being stabbed, bleeding out, and left to die alone in the darkness. For Evelyn Bunte, this was not a scene from a horror movie. It was her reality. Her story is not just one of survival, but a miracle. How could anyone endure such pain, let alone survive it? Evelyn's journey is more than just the harrowing details of that night. It's a story of resilience, the human spirit, and the determination to live, even when the odds are stacked impossibly high. Once full of joy and life, she now walks through the world with scars, both visible and hidden, that tell the story of a night she will never forget. Before that fateful night, Evelyn Bunte was like anyone else, someone with dreams, hopes, and a love for life. She was a vibrant woman, always smiling, full of kindness and light. People gravitated toward her because she had an infectious energy, a light that made everything around her seem brighter. But on that night, everything changed. Evelyn was thrust into a battle for her life, one that would leave her body and soul forever altered. But the biggest question remains, how did Evelyn survive? How did she endure not just one, but 3 bullets to the head and multiple stab wounds? And perhaps most haunting of all, who would commit such a brutal, senseless attack? Was it someone she knew? A random act of violence? As we dive deeper into Evelyn's story, we'll uncover the terrifying details of that night and explore the miraculous nature of her survival. It began like any other night. Evelyn was out, enjoying her evening, unaware that her life was about to be ripped apart. There were no warnings, no signs that something was wrong. But everything changed in an instant. Somewhere in the darkness, someone attacked her. Evelyn later recalled only fragments of the assault. It was sudden and violent, like being caught in a nightmare. I felt like I was drowning in pain, she would later say. The first shot rang out, then another, and another. Evelyn was shot 3 times in the head at point-blank range. The assailant didn't stop there. Evelyn was also stabbed multiple times. Blood poured from her wounds, and she was left for dead. To understand the extent of Evelyn's injuries, you have to appreciate just how brutal the attack was. Medical reports would later reveal that 2 of the bullets had lodged in her skull, while one miraculously missed vital parts of her brain. The stab wounds, while severe, were not immediately fatal, but the combination of the gunshots and stabs left Evelyn on the brink of death. According to trauma specialists, the fact that Evelyn survived even a few minutes after the attack is nothing short of a miracle. One of the bullets had narrowly missed her brain stem, which would have killed her instantly. The cuts on her body were deep, but none severed major arteries. It was as if some force was keeping her alive against all odds. After the attack, Evelyn lay bleeding in the dark. She had been abandoned by her attacker, left to die alone. It's impossible to imagine the terror and pain she must have felt in those moments. But somehow, Evelyn clung to life. Even though her body was broken, her spirit refused to give up. Hours passed, and it seemed like help would never come. But then, in the early hours of the morning, a passerby stumbled upon her. Evelyn was barely conscious when she was found, her body limp, covered in blood. Her savior immediately called 911, and paramedics arrived within minutes. They were shocked at what they saw, a woman who should have been dead but was still breathing. The paramedics who arrived on the scene were stunned. They had seen countless victims of violent crimes, but Evelyn's injuries were among the worst they'd ever encountered. She was quickly rushed to the hospital, barely hanging on. Her pulse was weak and her breathing shallow. But somehow, Evelyn was alive. At the hospital, doctors worked frantically to stabilize her. They performed emergency surgery to remove the bullets lodged in her skull and repair the damage caused by the stabs. The prognosis was grim. One of the doctors later told reporters, "I've seen patients with less severe injuries who didn't make it." Evelyn's survival is nothing short of a miracle. Even with the best medical care, Evelyn's chances were slim. She had lost a significant amount of blood, and the trauma to her brain was severe. Her family was told to prepare for the worst, but Evelyn wasn't ready to give up. Against all odds, she began to show signs of improvement. Her recovery wasn't immediate, nor was it easy. Evelyn spent weeks in the intensive care unit, hovering between life and death. Her body was fighting infection, and doctors were unsure if she would ever regain consciousness. But Evelyn's will to live was stronger than anyone could have imagined. Evelyn's recovery process was long and arduous. She underwent multiple surgeries to repair the damage caused by the gunshots and stab wounds. The physical pain was excruciating, and there were days when she wondered if she would ever feel whole again. "There were moments where I didn't feel like myself again," Evelyn later admitted. Her body had endured so much trauma that simple tasks, like walking or even lifting her arm, became monumental challenges. But Evelyn fought through the pain, determined to regain control of her life. She underwent months of physical therapy, relearning how to use parts of her body that had been damaged. Doctors were astonished by her progress. But the physical wounds were only part of the battle. The emotional and psychological scars ran even deeper. Evelyn struggled with intense post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. She had recurring nightmares, reliving the night of the attack over and over again in her sleep. The sound of gunshots would make her jump, and certain places or smells would trigger flashbacks to that horrific night. Evelyn worked closely with therapists, learning how to manage her trauma. But the hardest part was learning to trust again. "For a long time, I couldn't be around people," she recalled. "I didn't trust anyone. I felt like anyone could hurt me." The road to emotional recovery was long and grueling, but Evelyn slowly began to heal. Evelyn's faith played a critical role in her recovery. She found strength in moments of prayer and solace in her spiritual community. Friends and family surrounded her, offering support and love, helping her rediscover the pieces of herself she thought were lost forever. "My faith kept me going," Evelyn said. "In my darkest moments, I believed there was a reason I survived, even if I didn't know what that reason was at the time." Slowly but surely, Evelyn began to rebuild her life. She found solace in the quiet moments, in the support of her friends, and in the realization that she had endured something unimaginable and survived. "Every day is a gift now," Evelyn reflected. "I never take anything for granted anymore." Despite Evelyn's remarkable survival, the question that haunts her and everyone who hears her story is simple. Who did this to her, and why? The police launched an investigation immediately after Evelyn was found, but the case has been complicated by the lack of clear evidence. The attacker fled the scene, leaving little behind to trace their identity. The attack wasn't random. It was calculated and brutal. Authorities initially suspected someone close to Evelyn, but as time passed, the case grew colder. Eyewitnesses were scarce, and those who had been in the area that night provided little useful information. Is the attacker still out there? Years after the attack, Evelyn's attacker remains at large. Despite numerous attempts to find the perpetrator, justice has yet to be served. The media reported on the case for a time, but eventually, it faded from the headlines. Evelyn, however, lives with the fear that her assailant could strike again. "It's terrifying to think he's still out there," she said, "but I can't let that fear control my life." For Evelyn, the lack of closure is one of the hardest parts of her journey. While she has physically healed, the emotional weight of knowing that her attacker is still free is something she carries with her every day. "I just want justice," she said, "not just for me, but for everyone else out there who has suffered." Today, Evelyn is a different person than she was before the attack. The trauma she endured has left her with permanent scars, but it has also given her a deeper appreciation for life. "I've been given a second chance," she said. "Every day I wake up, I'm thankful." While she will always carry the weight of that horrific night, Evelyn has found a way to move forward, focusing on the future rather than dwelling on the past. Her recovery has been nothing short of remarkable. Not only did she regain much of her physical strength, but she also reclaimed her joy. Evelyn is now an advocate for survivors of violent crimes, using her story to inspire others who have faced unimaginable pain. "I want people to know that no matter how dark things get, there's always hope," she said. "I'm living proof of that." Despite her incredible recovery, the scars, both physical and emotional, remain. "Every scar on my body tells a story," Evelyn said. "And while I wish none of this had happened, I can't hide from it. It's part of who I am now." These scars serve as a reminder of her strength and resilience, but also of the violence she endured. Evelyn has learned to live with the trauma, but there are still days when the memories of that night are overwhelming. "There are times when it all comes flooding back," she said, "but I've learned to manage it. I don't let it control me." As Evelyn reflects on her journey, one question continues to haunt her. What kind of person could do this to another human being? "I don't understand how someone could be so cruel," she said. "But I've learned that sometimes we never get the answers we want." Evelyn's story is one of survival, but it's also a sobering reminder of the darkness that exists in the world. While she has found peace, the mystery of her attacker's identity lingers. Still, Evelyn refuses to be defined by that night. "I survived for a reason," she said, "and I'm going to make the most of this life I've been given." If Evelyn's story touched you, please like this video and subscribe for more stories of resilience, hope, and survival. And if you or someone you know has been a victim of violence, reach out for help. There's always hope, even in the darkest of times. Thank you for watching.